final say to a point. The people leaders of the 3 skills taxonomy of cats talks about trying to understand feelings, attitudes, and motives of the people you're trying to lead. And that's absolutely important in trying to find out what my players are feeling, thinking, where they're at emotionally. Let's say, little Johnny just got his heart broken because, Susie broke up with him, and so he's, playing like crap at practice. Well, it's not going to do me any good, to be spazzing at him and to, be chewing his head off during practice when obviously he's playing poorly not because of a lack of effort, but because of external things that are going on, or maybe it's a death in the family or a big test coming up. You need to be able to understand what's going on in your players' lives so that you're able to effectively communicate with them, which is the second point, communicating clearly and effectively. And once you're able to identify the issue that has arose, being able to clearly communicate with that player and figure out a solution for the problem, whether that's you telling the player, communicating that in a way to the player that this is what needs to be done and you have to do it this way, doing that in a way that the player will be able to understand, respect, and be like, yep, you're right. Or maybe it's something where it's a little more free and there's a little more back and forth communication between you and the player, getting the player to open up, feel comfortable, communicating their ideas, and feeling as though their ideas will be respected, because then I think once you come up with a solution, the player will buy into that solution much more. Establishing effective and cooperative relationships, and I think you do those first 2 things, that's going to allow you to do the third, and developing relationships that will last long beyond a player's playing career. And I think of the head coach at Minnesota Duluth, and he would always say that the most rewarding thing to him in all his years of coaching hasn't been the wins and the losses or getting to travel or anything like that. It's been the relationships that he's developed with players over the years. Again, Covey in his 7 Habits of Highly Successful People definitely is an inside-out approach, looking from within to be able to lead the people around you. First is being proactive and trying to tackle issues before they become issues, thinking ahead, being more than just reactive, being proactive. Beginning with the end in mind. I'm big on, as a team, getting together and coming up with goals as to where, as a whole, you want to be at the end of a season. And then figuring out what things need to be done to get you there. And then from that, put first things first. Talks about, doing the things that matter right here, right now. You need to make sure you're taking care of yourself as a person so that you're then able to communicate with the things, deal with the things on down the line. Think win-win scenario, and my example for this is coming up with drills in practice. There are some drills that need to be done in practice that players just do not like. There's some drills that I think need to be done in practice because players like them, but you don't really get a whole heck of a lot out of them in terms of production or knowledge as to what your team needs to get better at. But it energizes the team, it energizes the practice, and I think that can then carry on throughout your other drills. But if you can come up with drills that not only players enjoy, but you are able to get a lot out of as a coach in terms of analyzing, oh, this was good, that wasn't good, we need to get better at this, so we did this really well. If you can find drills that are win-win in that situation, that's tremendous. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. It would be absolutely destructive if I went out there blowing my head up, yelling and screaming at a player about something that I didn't necessarily know the whole situation to, or was wrong on. And if you're able to understand things then other players will be able to understand what you're trying to say, and then they will buy into what you're selling. And then to synergize, to allow a cooperative group effort in things, not I but we type of mentality with your team. And then the last is the sharpen the saw analogy, which I love. Which you think about in the woods, you got two guys trying to saw through a tree, and the first guy, he's gonna saw every couple minutes. He's gonna take a break and he's gonna sharpen the saw and then go back to sawing. While the second guy, he's just gonna sit there going back and forth on the saw, trying to hustle his way through it, working really, really hard. Well, the first guy is able to get done cutting through the log before the second guy because he took time to sharpen the saw and be more effective in his sawing, where the second guy, by the end, he had a dull saw, and so he was doing all this work but getting nothing accomplished. And so I think as a coach, you need to look within in terms of things of, well, what am I doing that's just being, sawing with the dull saw? Because if I'm doing things where I'm sawing with the dull saw, I need to take the time, step back, look at it as a whole, quote unquote, sharpen the saw, and then I can get back to trying to actually do effective work. Some obstacles that might be encountered first one, frustrations from players who are not getting playing time. It can be a very difficult thing. I think of our roster this past season, we had 20 players on the roster, 21 to be exact. You only can really play a rotation of about 10, which is what we played this year. Some teams play less than that. So you've got a good number of players on your team who aren't getting playing time. And so I think it's very important to get those players who aren't playing regular minutes to identify roles for them, whether it's within practice, being the guy that's, playing our opposing point guard, and so you got to, let's say you're going up against a point guard that's, heavy dominant going left. Well, hey, this week, Johnny, you're going to be going left. I want you going left all the time because this player that we're going up against goes left all the time. Well, I think players can buy into that fact of, hey, yeah, I got a role. I'm a part of this. I'm a piece of what we've got going here as a team. Parents would be the second thing, and it can be very, very difficult to get parents to understand as to why their son is not playing, because, well, they're not there at practice every single day. They don't see what you see. They don't see what the player sees. And so it can be very difficult for a parent to understand why their son isn't playing. I think of a specific example where we had a player on our team at St. Norbert who last year played quite a bit. Played a good role for us off the bench as a freshman, and this past season as a sophomore did not play for us at all, in large part because we had two freshmen come in that outplayed him and took his minutes. And I think that competition is absolutely important within a program, but from the parent's standpoint, he doesn't understand why his son played a lot as a freshman and now isn't playing at all as a sophomore. And so it can be very difficult to try to communicate to a parent why their son is not playing. The third thing being a lack of success. I think especially if you start out at a new program where you're trying to implement your system, you don't necessarily have your players there to start, and you're going to take some lumps, and it can be difficult for your team to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And you gotta get them to be able to see what you're seeing, because if you don't, they're going to end up wanting to do their own thing, and they're not going to buy in to what you're selling, and you're going to lose them. And then the fourth thing, I think, is over-analysis, because I think there's times where as coaches, you worry about so many different things, you try to be able to correct everything, and there's times where, you just got to let players go out there and play. And if you're able to figure out those times when you just need to say, hey, guys, just go out there and play and let them make plays on their own, because that's what they are players. It can be an effective thing. The kind of that traditional statement of overanalysis creates paralysis. And so if you overthink yourself too much, you might be hurting your team more than helping. So that's my presentation, guys. Again, sorry I wasn't able to be there. I really wish I'd be able to see your presentations. I'm sure you guys all did a great job. It's been great being in class with you guys the last 2 years, and hopefully we're able to stay in touch as time moves on. Thanks again.